What if I told you that by the end of the Israel-Hamas conflict, Palestine could no longer exist? Now, before you automatically assume Israel would be responsible, the real people behind this may shock you. It's no secret, there's been a lot of deception. At this point, the world is not sure who or what to believe. We've heard of babies being beheaded in Israel. We've seen footage of children suffering in Gaza, while Hamas spokespersons insist that these atrocities are being perpetrated by the Israelis. So, who's telling the truth? We know that Hamas has a habit of telling lies and fabricating stories to sway the public. We've seen the footage. Hamas's only response to these allegations to date has been to say, "Not true." We need to ask ourselves just how deep this deception will go, or how far will the powers that be in the Middle East be willing to use Palestine as expendable pawns in a religious game? What if I told you that they will go much further than anyone could ever imagine? Gaza is a tiny strip of land that could easily be annihilated. To date, this strip of land has been invaluable in the plot to turn the world against the only Jewish state in the world. Think logically, please. Who benefits the most from Palestinian deaths? Every person that dies in the Israel-Hamas conflict conjures a little more anti-Semitic hate for Israel, whether they are guilty or not. We know that the endgame is the complete and utter annihilation of Israel. It would be quite beneficial for the Arab religious cause if the world supported this extermination effort of the Jews. So, one Palestinian casualty at a time, the Arab religious forces are gaining momentum. These Arab nations are weeping on the world stage for their Palestinian brothers and sisters who are living in an apparent apartheid state, yet not one of them will open their doors to allow at least some of them in. What good is an empty Gaza? The Arab states are angry, and now so is the world. The world is getting angrier and angrier and angrier. There will come a time, however, that the progress of this cause will not be moving fast enough, and the powers that be in the Middle East will seek to speed up things a little bit. Remember when that hospital in Gaza was bombed and Israel was blamed by Hamas, only to find out that it was the misfiring of rockets from another terror group that caused the damage? Anybody remember that? Remember the reports that started to trickle out from Palestine where some civilians began to cry out against Hamas? Yes, Palestinian civilians began to cry out against Hamas, who were keeping them from leaving. Well, we no longer hear from those folks. I wonder what ever happened to them. What if I told you that when Palestine outlives its usefulness, the very Arab nations that claim to be fighting their cause, those very nations will seek to destroy them? Why? Before we answer why, it must be asked, where could I get such a preposterous idea from? Well, let me tell you, the Bible, Isaiah 14:29, "Rejoice not thou, whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent." The Lord warns Palestina, known today as Palestine. This is where the name Palestine was taken from. The Lord warns Palestine to not rejoice that the rod that smote you is broken. Israel beat you in the wars that you have launched against him. Now you are rejoicing in the fact that it has its sovereignty, the rod in question. The prophecy goes on to say something eerie yet quite possible. Isaiah 14:31, "Howl, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestina, art dissolved, for there shall come from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. Cry and howl, Palestine, because smoke is going to come from the north and will dissolve you. You will be no more." The nations to the north of Palestine are Lebanon and Syria, Hezbollah, and other groups. With these nations in conjunction with Iran, we may see it as the playing of a trump card to wipe Gaza away, seeing that it will benefit their cause in the eyes of the world. Hundreds of thousands of Arabs have died at the hands of other Arabs in the Middle East in the very recent past. The destruction of Palestine will only add to an already growing number. But this would be priceless to the perpetrators, since it may gain them the world's favor against Israel. Anybody see how this is making sense? And this is what the scripture is actually telling us. I know what you're thinking. They could never do that. That's impossible. Of course they can. They already have done similar. Some of you may know what I'm referring to. Then again, maybe not. That's another video. Either way, this is a very, very real possibility. But how can they get away with it? Simple. They just do what they've always done. Blame Israel. Could this be the straw that breaks the camel's back? It might as well be, regardless of how we look at things and whether we are accurate with prophecy or not. We know for sure that all this will end with the world turning on Israel. That may be good news for the anti-Israeli crowd, but not for long, because the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout to defend his people, and all eyes will see him. Are you ready for that? If not, get ready.